guys, you're going to be talking about more Brexit.
This a moment of triumph and rebirth for the Tory party, or the beginning of the end? We have with us Lord Heseltine, former Tory Deputy Prime Minister, and now one of the party's most scathing critics over its Brexit policy. Lord Heseltine, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, you have an op-ed in the Sunday Times this morning, along with Betty Boothroyd. In it, you talk about Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, being the most grotesque act of national self-harm committed in peacetime by a British government. Do you not think that's a little bit OTT?
No, I don't. I think you, in your headlines, revealed exactly the situation. Perhaps you should have added, you certainly should have added, the fact that the Union of the United Kingdom itself is at risk, as polls are now showing in Scotland. But the economy is stalled, inflation is rising, and the pound is in serious difficulties and threatens to get worse. Investment is on hold. There is an atmosphere of total indecision and ineffectiveness at the heart of government, because, let's be frank, there is no parliamentary majority for what this government is threatening to do. And because this government is completely obsessed with the preposterous idea we should leave Europe without a deal, the whole of the agenda for running this country, for modernising this country, is on hold.
But Lord Heseltine, you might talk about it being a preposterous agenda. I spoke to the new Chancellor, Sajid Javid, just a couple of days ago. He is in office, he's in the Treasury, he has all the briefing notes about the possible implications of a no-deal Brexit, and he says he's not frightened, he's not worried about the implications. He should know, shouldn't he? Do you have any reason to actually doubt him?
Well, I think he should start listening to all the professional advisors around him.
But suppose he is listening to his advisors and they're telling him not to worry. That's what he says.
That's what he says, but we all know from the very wide, extensive press reporting, from all the surveys of international and financial expertise, that actually the situation is serious. And the idea that you've got a government which is trashing money around the place like there's no tomorrow, aimed very specifically at very clear electoral targets, is actually a policy of economic irresponsibility.
You talk about, in your op-ed, about Dominic Cummings, the advisor to the Prime Minister, being a revolutionary menace. What do you mean by that? I mean, there have always been special advisors.
Well, I think we took the words from himself. I think he sees himself as a revolutionary. But let's be frank, much more important.
One second. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Just had to check for something outside. Someone put a mail for my letterbox.
about having a Prime Minister and a Cabinet is that they're accountable to Parliament. We've got this guy who is now in direct contact with the British media, briefing them on policies, scathingly attacking members of the House of Commons who should be held in respect, and actually parading himself as the mastermind behind the government. That is an intolerable position for democracy. It is absolutely central that Parliament should be able to call to account people who represent them as ministers. And at the moment, we are now being told by a particular figure who's proud of it that he's more or less sort of running the show.
But Lord Heseltine, one of the things that Parliament has done is to vote for Article 50. And one of the upshots of Article 50, I mean, it's maybe there in the small print, but nonetheless it is very much there, is that if there is no deal, then the UK would leave at the end of the deadline. So Parliament has actually voted
Yes, but why
for a process that leads to no deal, haven't they?
No. When we did the referendum, it was clearly stated by the Leave campaign that they were not going for a no deal. In March of this year, Michael Gove clearly said that they did not want a no deal. There is no majority for no deal.
Article 50, it says there will be a no deal if there is no deal. You know, if there is a deadline and if nothing is reached by that, there is no deal. That is part of the process of leaving.
Well, that is not what Parliament voted for, and it's quite clear that Parliament will not vote for that. There is no majority in Parliament and no majority in the country for no deal.
Let's talk about your position within the Conservative Party. You had the whip withdrawn around the time of the European elections when you said that you were going to vote for the Lib Dems. Have you had the whip reinstated since then?
But I got sacked by the Prime Minister because I voted some time ago that Parliament should be given a meaningful vote. At that time, the Prime Minister was arguing that it shouldn't. 3 weeks later, she was forced by Parliament to concede that what I had been sacked for advocating became government policy. And so let's be quite clear that this is a battle which has been going on and is very intense ever since the result of the referendum, and it will continue to go on, and it will vitally be fought in Parliament. At the moment, Parliament is deadlocked. How the government gets past that is a matter we have to see.
Just the reason I ask about the whip is I'm just curious as to whether you are kind of now formally still part of the government benches on the Lords, or whether that's changed.
My position is very clear. I have stood for the Conservative Party and fought for it since the 1950s. I have supported every Prime Minister in one way or another throughout that period. And all of them were people who argued that Britain's destiny lay at the heart of Europe. I haven't changed my mind, and I will continue to stay in that position within the Conservative Party. I am a Conservative Party that fought its most entrenched battles and will continue to do so, but I will never sacrifice British self-interest for narrow party purposes.
We're talking about the Conservative Party. I mean, the polls, when you look at them now, there has been a bounce since Boris Johnson took over. It looks like actually there are a lot of people who rather support his position on Brexit. I mean, some people would say actually this is a good moment for the Tory party, and in a sense that you're just going against the grain of that.
Well, you should look at the Brecon by-election. You should look at the Mail on Sunday poll today showing what's happening in key marginals where the Lib Dems are second, which shows actually there's been no bounce at all. And this is before we've even got into the serious consequences of the no Brexit risks. As that deteriorates, I think people will become increasingly apprehensive of where this policy is leading us. We shall see. But in the end, there is no parliamentary majority, and therefore I don't believe that Brexit can happen on a no-deal basis. A Prime Minister is one of 650 people. The only thing that singles them out is that they can command a majority in the House of Commons. If they can't, they're just one of 650. And that, I suspect, is the position in which Mr. Johnson will find himself with no parliamentary majority. And it would be abuse of our constitution to then think that you can take Britain out of Europe despite the House of Commons.
One of the consequences of that lack of a majority is that there is a lot of talk now about the possibility of a snap election potentially very soon. In the event of a snap election, who would you vote for?
Well, I don't have a vote, but that is a cop-out, and I'm saying it before you say it. I can tell you that large numbers of Conservatives, and again the poll I referred to shows that in today's newspapers, will not vote for a no-deal Brexit. They will vote for whatever party appears to stand behind a European policy. Large numbers of Conservatives, friends of mine, colleagues of mine, approach me every day asserting the fact that they will vote for Britain's national self-interest, despite the loyalty they feel to the Conservative Party. And
so what would you advocate? What would you advocate for them to vote for? Who would you advocate for them to vote for?
I will not myself determine who anyone should vote for, but my view remains that whatever I may think, large numbers of people will vote for what they believe to be Britain's national self-interest, and therefore for a candidate that represents the European destiny to which this country has been committed since the 1960s.
What I wonder, do you think the solution is for this? A lot of people would say that a second referendum, which you've been advocating, would only make the sense of social cohesion in this country even worse. What is the solution here? Is there any neat exit that you would be happy with?
Well, I would be happy with a solution that leaves Britain at the heart of Europe. Of course, that is my position and of every Conservative leader I've worked for. But we are where we are, and I agree with you that the most likely scenario today is continued uncertainty. But in the event of continued uncertainty, the worst thing to do is to add to that uncertainty by actually cutting the ground from underneath our economic strength, which depends in huge measure on our membership of the European community.
Very interesting, guys. Very interesting indeed, as one would say. Extremely interesting. And let's see what else is on the TV. My phone's on low battery as well. I should have charged it yesterday, really, but. Alright, let's have a look. Something else on the television.
Fundamentally at loggerheads,
Mr. is adamant coming down.
Just trying to find something, guys, I can show you.
Let's start, shall we, with that £1.8 billion of extra funding for the health service. Presumably you welcome that with open arms.
well, we'll see if this money is ever delivered. Over the last 2 years, 145 separate announcements for new beds, new equipment, upgrades to buildings have been announced by ministers, totalling £2.5 billion, and only 100 million of it has ever actually been delivered. It's sheer incompetence on the part of Matt Hancock, the health secretary. Look, our hospitals are suffering from their ceilings collapsing, sewage pipes bursting. Cancer patients waiting for diagnosis have had their appointments cancelled because of faulty equipment. Seriously ill mental health patients at risk of suicide are in old, decrepit, dormitory-style wards. And it's because Tory ministers have done these smash and grab raids on the investment budgets, cutting over £4 billion from those budgets. And it means today that our hospitals, our NHS, is facing a backlog of £6 billion worth of repairs, putting patient safety, patient lives at risk every day. It's no wonder the top advisors of Boris Johnson say Tory MPs don't care about the NHS.
So how much would Labour spend on the health service in additional funding? I mean, the Health Foundation suggests a figure of £6 billion is necessary. Is that one that you would see?
Well, we, at the last election, said we'd want to invest an extra £10 billion in the capital infrastructure of our NHS. We could have a general election very soon. There's speculation in the newspapers again today that the Tories are preparing for a general election. That's what today's announcement's all about. And if a general election comes along in the next few weeks...
I don't think a general election is going to happen.
We'll come forward with a new funding settlement for the NHS. But what we are clear on is that we're prepared to put more money into our NHS so we can rebuild our hospitals, we can rebuild our doctors' surgeries.
We would have had a general election ages ago.
Say their surgeries, their local general practice surgeries are not good enough. So we can buy the modern equipment so we can get our cancer diagnosis rates much better. Over 40,000 people wait beyond 6 weeks for a diagnosis. It used to be 3,000 people 9 years ago. And that's because we've got some of the lowest numbers of MRI scanners and CT scanners in the Western world. It's simply not good enough. These Tory cuts are putting lives at risk. And we have to put more investment into the NHS. You're not going to get it with Boris Johnson.
On occasion, the Labour Party has been accused of indulging in a little bit of project fear-mongering. I suspect people will make that accusation today about the latest pace of Labour research, which suggests that signing a free trade agreement with the United States could see drug prices spiral out of control.
It's not remotely scaremongering. This is what the US's own health secretary has said. The US have said that they want to force the NHS to buy American pharmaceuticals, American medicines at more expensive prices. So a trade deal with the US, not only will it mean more US firms coming in to run sections of our NHS, so privatising our NHS, and Matt Hancock is already allowing £9 billion worth of contracts to go to the private sector, but it will mean the US pharmaceutical industry forcing us to buy more expensive drugs. Asthma drugs,
why would that be any different under Labour?
Cancer drugs.
Why would that be any different under Labour, given you're both going to have to sign the same FTA?
No, because we are not going to sign a trade deal with the United States that would allow the US to come in, buy up the NHS, and force the NHS to buy pharmaceuticals from US pharmaceuticals companies.
So we're not going to sign an FTA with the United States then under a Labour government?
We are not going to smash up the regulatory regime, the nice regulatory regime that we have in this country that has served us well for many, many years, and which allows us to have pharmaceuticals, allows us to have medicines at reasonable prices. The US specifically want a trade deal to force us to buy more expensive medicines, and it will mean the NHS forking out more for insulin, for asthma medications, for cancer drugs. I don't believe that's fair, and Tory ministers should rule it out today.
Well, we should say at this point, of course, that the government has on a number of occasions said that the NHS is not for sale. But I wonder, whilst we're
this is about pharmaceuticals, though. This is about pharmaceuticals, though, isn't it? This is about the pharmaceutical industry. And the US Secretary for Health has specifically said he wants other countries, including the UK, to pay more for US pharmaceuticals. This will be a red line in one of their trade deals, and that is why it's so important and why we're raising it today.
I wonder if we can turn our attention to what happened in Brecon in the by-election this week. This was not a happy hunting ground for Labour, admittedly. But given how long this government has been in power, given the new leader and the popularity which we keep hearing is attributed to him from senior Labour figures like yourself, why didn't Labour turn up?
Well, I've been involved in election campaigns all my political life for 20 years. That by-election very quickly became a contest between the Liberals and the Tory party. So it's not surprising that the Labour vote would be squeezed in that by-election. In fact, I remember by-elections when we were in government. I'm sorry, I'm getting attacked by flies here. But I remember by-elections when we were in. Sorry about that. I remember by-elections when we were in government and we were going on to win subsequent general elections where the Labour vote was squeezed significantly because the by-election became a fight between the Liberals and the Tory party. That's not unusual in by-elections.
Well, it's certainly not unusual in the by-elections that Labour has fought recently. Brecon, you dropped your vote share by 12.5%. Peterborough, you dropped it by 17%. Newport West, 13%. In 2018, Lewis and Rees, you went down by 18%. 2017, you dropped by 2% in Stoke and 5% in Copeland. There is one direction of travel in all of this, and it's entirely the wrong direction for a party that says that it's ready for a general election.
Yeah, but in those by-elections like Lewisham and Newport, we held on. And actually Peterborough, which was a Tory seat until 2017, a seat that all the pundits and experts said we were going
They
to...
come up with any excuses on this thing.
We held on to that Peterborough seat. I mean, that was a Labour seat between 1997 and I think 2005. So we lost it under the days of Tony Blair. We won it back in 2017 and we held on to it in a difficult by-election, which every expert, and every time I came on shows like this, they said, oh, you're going to lose this Peterborough by-election, aren't you? It's the end of Labour. And we held on in Peterborough in a key marginal, the sort of marginal seat that will be which will be the electoral battleground between Labour and the Conservative Party in the general election whenever it comes.
I'm sorry to kind of bang on about this point, but there are plenty of people within the party and without the party who make the point that Jeremy Corbyn has to have had a role in the poor performances that there have been. I mean, your argument essentially seems to be, well, we held on. Surely that isn't good enough at this point in the electoral cycle. Pat Glass making the point on Twitter not that long ago. Surely it's now time to wake up, smell the coffee, and change the leader.
Well, no, of course we shouldn't be changing the leader. Jeremy Corbyn has been elected by the party members, and the party members want Jeremy Corbyn to go on and fight the next general election when it comes. I suspect it will come in the autumn, certainly reading today's newspapers it will. And the reason that we don't need any division in the Labour Party is that we've got Boris Johnson, who is a very right-wing Prime Minister, who is taking us out of the European Union, probably with a no deal. You had a Treasury Minister on your programme last week saying we are turbocharging towards no deal. No deal will be a catastrophe for the National Health Service. It'll be a catastrophe for our smooth access to medicines when we import 37 million packs of medicine every month from the EU. It'll be a catastrophe for our economy. We'll lose billions of pounds worth in investment. We've seen in the newspapers today that schools are worried about the supply chain for school dinners. We might not get school dinners in our schools. So that is the big divide in British politics.
It may not be the big divide in British politics, but how are you going to stop no deal? I mean, if you look at the papers this morning, Dominic Cummings and others are absolutely assured of the fact that you've missed the boat in terms of a vote of confidence. If the Labour Party's priority was to stop no deal, why on earth didn't you call the vote before Parliament rose for the summer recess?
There'll be opportunities for us when Parliament returns in September to stop no deal.
Not according to number 10. They feel that if a vote of confidence were lost, there was sufficient wiggle room with the Prime Minister's discretion that they could call a general election that would be after, they would call a general election which polling day would be after October the 31st.
Well, let's see what happens in September, because the government will have to bring forward appropriate legislation to prepare for this Brexit no deal exit that they want. And we will use all the means available to us in Parliament, working across the parties, because we know there are plenty of Tory MPs who want to block no deal as well, particularly a lot of those who Boris Johnson, perhaps rather foolishly in retrospect, sacked from the Cabinet 2 weeks ago. We're working with MPs across the House of Commons, and we will work to stop no deal. Tory ministers are turbocharging towards a no deal. That's what the Treasury Minister said on your programme last Sunday. And I think to push us out of the European Union at the end of October, beginning of November, on a no deal basis, as we're going into winter, which is always a difficult time for the NHS, is the height of irresponsibility when we know a no deal Brexit would be disastrous for the NHS. It will put lives at risk. That is the gamble that Boris Johnson is taking this October, November. He is playing with people's lives, and he's playing with the future of the NHS by turbocharging towards a no deal.
We are just about to run out of time, but I just want to be absolutely clear about this. Do you accept that you may have missed the boat in terms of a vote of no confidence? That the time might might not be there for a general election to take place before we leave the European Union?
No, I don't accept that. I don't agree with Dominic Cummings' analysis. And by the way, we keep reading about what Dominic Cummings says and doesn't say. We know he said that Tory MPs don't care about the NHS. If we've got that on the record, why doesn't Dominic Cummings just come out and do interviews? Because every newspaper seems to report what he's saying at special advisors meetings in number 10. You know, this guy is running Downing Street. He wants to take us out of the European Union with a disastrous no deal. He believes Tory MPs don't care about the NHS. I agree with him on that. But I know that an NHS is going to be absolutely catastrophic for the. I know there's going to be catastrophic for the NHS. He's putting patient lives at risk. Boris Johnson is highly irresponsible by refusing to take it off the table.
Well, that's how it goes, I think. Just trying to find another video I can show. The phone will probably be dying soon, so I have to put it on charge. Yep. Just trying to find another video, guys, or I might just leave it at that. I should catch you guys in the next stream. Thanks for joining me in this broadcast. Hope you've all had fun. I'm going to put my phone on charge now, and I'll do some more videos later. Thanks for joining me, and yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share these videos with your friends. See you in the next one, guys. Peace. So there it goes.